you are good at something right out of the gate, it is probably because you have been learning it vicariously through the media you are consuming. And if you're not good at something right out of the gate, that doesn't mean shit about your talent or your value as a person because you're learning. So regardless, celebrate all of it. When you do something and you're like, this looks like shit, hooray, that means you are about to embark on a journey. Hey, sunshine, it's spooky season. I am recording on September 1st, which is the first official day of spooky season, according to me and a lot of people on the internet. So we're going with it. I have spooky makeup on. So if you're just listening to the audio on this, you should check out my YouTube channel because I'm adorable. Anyway, I would like to talk about why neurodivergent creatives tend to be good at something right away. And I know that a lot of the time when I talk about this topic, it is that I want you to be more forgiving and compassionate to yourself when you are not good at something right away. Because when we have this sort of growing up gifted thing and we always succeeded in school. So I was undiagnosed autistic, undiagnosed ADHD until my 30s. And I am self-diagnosed autistic because I have eyes and comprehension and can look at the experiences of autistic people and be like, oh yeah, holy shit. Yeah, I do that. So self-diagnosis, very valid in the autistic community. And I was finally diagnosed with ADHD when I started therapy with a new therapist once. And she was like, have you ever been evaluated for ADHD? And I said, no. And she gave me a little checklist and I went down the checklist and she's like, yeah, you should see a psychiatrist. So they faxed my stuff over to a psychiatrist and the psychiatrist was like, yep. Do you want some pills for that? And the first time I had a stimulant, like ADHD medication, it was like a fan went off. Like I did not know that there had been this white noise machine on in my brain. And suddenly I could hear better. So that was dope. But prior to this, I was simply a burned out overachiever. So why do we do that? I was always good at writing papers in school. I got the hang of art classes pretty quickly. There were some times that I wasn't good at something right away, but it was a class so I could learn. And I had really good teachers who were affirming and like taught us at a beginner level and didn't expect magical things. But then we get to adulthood and we have this thing where we think, well, if I'm not good at it right out of the gate, I don't really have time to learn it. And that would be one thing. If you don't have time to learn a new skill or hobby, sure, there's an argument for that. Some of us are super busy. But sometimes underneath that practical, I don't have time, is a belief that if you're not inherently good and talented at something, that you may as well not start. So I would like to give a little compassion and kindness to that mindset because it's totally okay to learn. It's totally okay to be a beginner, regardless of how you are neurodivergent or if you are neurodivergent. Learning stuff is a process. It's literally learning. It's how we figure out how to do new things. However, on the flip side, sometimes we are really good at stuff right away. I'm in an ADHD craft group on Facebook, and somebody posted, like, this is my second attempt at macrame. My first one was a plant hanger, and then I did this. And it's like this huge, I don't know, at least 3 foot wide, like beautiful macrame tapestry that's hanging on their wall. And I'm like, yeah, that tracks. That tracks that an ADHD person would be like, okay, I have the hang of this for a plant hanger. Now something enormous. And I do that with my paintings as well. So I use acrylics when I paint, typically. Sometimes I do watercolor, but from childhood, I always used acrylics. So, where I used to paint like a lion or a flower or a fall tree, I started getting a lot more creative and I would be like, here's a phoenix burning, right? So there's more motion involved. It's not just static images. There's more movement in the painting. And you just kind of have to figure out as you go what that looks like or take an art class. Like they teach you how to paint or draw motion in classes. But then I went like, no, I want to do like a 5-panel alternating size canvas thing. So like the one in the middle is tall and then they get progressively smaller. And it's like this 5-piece detached thing based on Starry Night, but there's a dragon. And then I did that. And I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever painted. And then I did this sort of stained glass geode, like kintsugi thing behind me. And that had, what's it called? Like modeling paste or something? That feels wrong. But it had something in it to give it texture. So I was able to use the paint, add to this like thickening medium, and then use a palette knife to get it on there. So if you're very close to this painting that's behind me, you can see that it's multi-layered and has a lot of texture going on, which I realize doesn't really super make sense for a geode, but whatever, I was experimenting. And then I was like, I'm going to paint broken glass over this. And then I'm going to put gold leaf in it. And now that's the coolest thing I've ever painted. And then I decided I wanted to try collage. And the very first thing I collaged, aside from, the vision board thing where you're kind of cutting out like large pieces of something and being like, I want a dog. This kitchen is pretty. Here's the word grow. I wanted to do a much more involved collage. So this guy behind me, and again, this one's much better for YouTube. So if you're on the podcast, I love you so much. Check out the YouTube. Maybe I'll try and make like a blog post with photos of these in it too, so that if you're just a podcast listener, you can go see them. This is a 2x3 foot collage of a park with perspective. So the images that are toward the back of the park are much smaller images than the things that are at the front, so that it actually looks like a scene of like a park. And there's lakes and fountains and pumpkins and all sorts of stuff. And I'm like, of course, that's the first thing I do with collage. Of course, I do something absolutely enormous. It's like go big or go home with my ADHD. And I also want to speak to the fact that it's not totally my first experience with a new medium when I do it, because I'm terminally online and I'm watching reels. Does anybody else go down the reel rabbit hole where you just click one reel or one TikTok and suddenly you wake up and it's been 3 days and you haven't had water or food and you're like, where's my family? That is how deep I get into the reels. And because I'm a creative and I talk about creative stuff and I watch creative reels, like I'm more likely to click on something if I can see right away that it's painting or it's something artistic or gardening. Algorithm's giving me a lot of gardening right now because I've been working on a garden. I see all these techniques. Like I see watercolor, I see color theory, mixing colors to color match something. I know what complementary colors are. I'm not an expert with color theory, but I'm starting to learn about it just from watching other people talk about it. And for the neurodivergent brain, and correct me if people who are not autistic or ADHD also do this, please let me know. I'm pretty sure it's a neurodivergent thing. I'm always like percolating those things that I witness and those things that I see happening when I watch those reels or when I look at pictures or videos of people doing something. And I think due to the higher level of neural connectivity in a neurodivergent brain. So, science moment. Science moment. When you're a child and you're learning stuff, you're making all kinds of neural connections. And then as you grow up, your brain will prune connections that are no longer needed. So you have pretty much like a basic script for most scenarios you will encounter. In autistic brains, a far, far fewer amount of those connections are pruned, which means when we can parkour from something that's like, you say, oh, I missed the bus today. And we go like, did you know that sound waves are further apart for lower sounds? That's because when you said bus, we thought about that Magic School Bus episode where they went to the sound museum and they were able to see sound waves. The neural connections are more, and that is why we have such great pattern recognition. So my theory, and I am not a scientist, I wish I was a scientist. Let's crowdfund for me to go get a PhD in like autistic joy. Could we do that? I love that. Let's do it. Jokes that will turn true in 12 years because I'm uncontrollable. So we've got this pattern recognition thing. So my theory is that when I am watching reels of people making art in a way that I have not done with my own hands, I can see how it's going to work though. I can tell how that would work if I were the one doing it. Like, there's this guy, he does like Bob Ross style reels, and I'm pretty sure he's painting with oils, and he does clouds, and I've never been able to do clouds like this, and his clouds are gorgeous, and I'm like, I couldn't do that because I don't have the oils, and if I tried that with acrylics, I know that it would get sticky. So I'm learning, and I already know I'm not going to try that. But if I were to get oil paints, I feel like I could paint clouds because I've seen him do it so many times, and he explains it. And he's like, just the corner of the brush, just really light pressure, and then harder pressure over here. And then we're bringing in the greens that are in the sky like this. I'm going to find him. I'm going to link his reels in the show notes of whatever, because I love him. That's another problem, is that I'm not paying attention to who these people are. So I can't tell you their usernames unless I'm like, oh shit, that guy. Like the guy who puts on sort of like the goofy voice and he's like, I understood the assignment. Did you understood who you were assigning the assignment to? I love that guy also. Don't know his name. I should learn his name. And Vanessa, who's like, thank you. Thank you. I love her too. I don't know her name. Somebody tell me her name. Me tell me her name. Pay attention to people's names. All this to say, if you're good at something right out of the gate, it's probably because you've seen examples of it being done and you were unaware that your brain was putting that together as if you had experienced the learning, because you have a super awesome magic brain. And I love that for you. I love it for us. Neurodivergent creatives, we get shit done. And what else? I feel like I had another point. I feel like I just need like a little buzzer that goes off like every time I have an ADHD moment and I stare up into the sky. Ding! Caitlin forgot what they were talking about. It's fine. So I guess I'll end it here. Oh, wait, no, I remembered. Son of a bitch. Okay, so if you are good at something right out of the gate, it is probably because you have been learning it vicariously through the media you are consuming. And if you're not good at something right out of the gate, that doesn't mean shit about your talent or your value as a person, because you're learning. So regardless, celebrate all of it. When you do something and you're like, this looks like shit, hooray, that means you are about to embark on a journey. I think I've said this before, but the first time I learned how to crochet, just single crochet, which is fairly straightforward. You like stick the hook, you grab the yarn on like the other side of the loopy, and then you pull it through the first loopy. This makes no sense if you don't understand crochet. It's still kind of a mystery to me, but I was able to crochet a very shitty rectangle. It was more of like a kind of a rhombus. And I was like, great. I don't know if this is for me, because this is frustrating for me. There's like too much involved, but I also don't watch a lot of crochet content. And I think that I would be better at it if I did watch crochet content. What I did kind of get ahead of myself on was embroidery. I was like, I want to embroider something. I'm going to try that. And I have watched embroidery videos. And so I was able to take what I had learned, and I was not great at the execution of it, but I know that it's possible because I've seen it happen before in a beautiful little reel. And so I'm like, oh, I want to do embroidery and I want to bead it because I saw something really, really super pretty and I want to recreate it now. Similarly with the collage, I saw someone who did like large portraits with collage. And I was like, that looks fascinating. I like the idea of taking like just a like kind of a blob of color from a magazine page or a newspaper and using that as just a piece, like it's a brush stroke of paint rather than an image. And so I'm probably going to lean into that and see how I like it, as opposed to like the collage behind me, which it started as that. I was trying to make like, I don't know if you can see this tree, but I was trying to make this tree out of just like various kind of brown pieces. And then I ended up finding pieces of trees and tree trunks and tree bark to more directly establish that it was a tree because I had so many things that were like actual photographs of flowers and lakes and chairs and benches and fountains. All this to say, no matter where you're at, you're doing great. Keep it up. Make weird art. That's what we're all about. Oh, if you're in Cleveland, I'm going to be at Flaming River Con on September 16th. It's a Saturday, and I'm going to be vending and teaching there. I have a panel called Level Up Your Creativity. It's awesome. It's like making a plan for how to reconnect with your creativity. It's like making a plan for how to reconnect with your creativity based on character creation in tabletop role playing. So it's sort of like D&D for your brain. It's going to be pretty dope. If you are around the Cleveland area or anywhere in Northeast Ohio, I would love to see you there. You should follow Flaming River Con on the interwebs and also follow me on the interwebs. I'm at Caitlin Liz Fisher on Instagram and the Facebook. And I don't really need to tell you anything else because I'm not very active anywhere else right now. Okay, I love you. Have a good day. Stay hydrated. Coffee is not a meal, but also have a coffee if it makes you happy. Okay, bye.